And then in your Bibles, turn to 2 Samuel. And we left off in chapter 2, where wise old Abner had taken the rear end of his spear and thrust it backwards when Asahel got too close to him and it went in there, probably punctured his heart and killed him. He died immediately, and now Abner knows he's going to have Joab and Abishai, the two brothers of Asahel, after him. So that's where we're going to pick it up. What's the end of the battle? How does this battle, this civil war between God's own people and God's own people to stop? We need that to happen here. All right, so verse 25 is where we'll pick it up. So 2 Samuel, if you're there, chapter 2, starting at verse 25. And the children of Benjamin. Why are we focused on the children of Benjamin? It's because Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. So they were very proud that the king was from their tribe. Just like we might be very proud if someone from the state of Wisconsin became president of the United States. There's lots of people who would vote for whoever that was, regardless of whether they're Democrat or Republican, because they're so proud of this person being representative of our state, but they're become president. Okay? So it's the same thing here. That's why they mentioned Benjamin. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner and became one troop and stood on the top of a hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, "Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren?" And Joab said, "As God liveth, unless thou hast spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up, every one from following the brother." So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more. Neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from following Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. And they took up Asahel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at break of day. All right. So there's a few things that we want to say here. Okay. After killing Asahel, obviously Joab and Abishai were chasing after Abner. Abner either being fleeter of foot or more cunning or just taking Joab more time. Abner and his men are able to get on top of a mountain. Why is that a good position? Because now on any side that they're attacked, they can defend themselves easily. It's always easy to defend down a mountain and not to try to fight up. Okay? Unless you have an overwhelming number of men. And so there's a bit of a pause in the action. Joab is probably down at the bottom of the hill looking up at Abner, and Abner's up there looking down at Joab. And before Joab leads a charge up the hill, Abner calls out to them, "Shall the sword devour forever?" In other words, are we just going to be fighting and fighting into infinity? Is this battle never going to end? It's just going to end in bitterness anyways. No one's going to be happy. We're going to have trouble anyways. Okay? And how long will you call off your men? How long, Joab? Till you call off your men. Okay? It was a good point. Joab rebukes back to Abner, "As God liveth, unless thou hast spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up everyone from following his brother." So Joab tries to act self-righteous, and Joab tries to say, "Well, this is all your fault, Abner. If you hadn't started this in the morning, we wouldn't be here in that position. You wanted this conflict, Abner." Okay? And because of that, Abner, I'm not going to stop the fighting until you finally ask for an end of battle, when you finally admit you were wrong. Now, Joab's not in the right here either. He could have easily not gone after Abner into the battle and ordered his men. He could have said no to the battle, but he didn't either. He wanted some of the fame and the glory and all the other stuff that comes with it as well. So, Joab is not a man I don't think that we can trust here. Neither is Abner. I think they're both out for their own their own selves. If we could look into their hearts, if we could see their hearts, which we can't see the heart of any man, only God can do that. But if we could see in there, we could see probably a heart that only cared about themselves and was only thinking about themselves. So Joab, what does he do? We read there that he blew a trumpet, and the men in the battlefield knew when the trumpet blows, you stand still. Maybe the battle is over. Maybe there's an important announcement to be made. So Joab blew the trumpet, and all the men stood still. Okay? And they must have announced that the battle was now ended. Okay? So Abner and his men, they march all night through go to the Jordan River, and then they cross the river and go north. Okay? And then Joab and his men, they decide to count up how many men that they had. Well, what do we find in the end? Well, we see that Joab, when he gathered his people together, they were only missing 19 people and Asahel. So a total of 20 people died on their side of the battle. Meanwhile, on the other side, Abner's men had lost 360 of them died. Now you might say, whew, that's a pretty lopsided battle. Why is it that one side had many more dead than the other? How is that possible? Shouldn't it be a little bit more even? And we could say that obviously, probably David and his men, they were used to running around in the wilderness. Remember, they had to flee from Saul all the time. They didn't really have homes that they lived in. They were always living in the woods. So they were probably rough and tumble, strong, hardy men used to living in the outdoors. Whereas Abner's men, Saul's soldiers, had been used to living in their homes and doing what they were doing there. They were probably not as hardened as David's men might have been. Okay? But also, Abner's army had to fight the Philistines quite frequently. So it also could say that they're very tired. They're worn out. Or a lot of the maybe good men who fought up in the front of the battle where the Philistines had died. So these were some of the weaker. But anyways, it doesn't matter. All we know is that the hearts of Abner and Joab are not in the right place. So David and his men, they begin to walk south in a different direction, away from Abner and his men. And they buried their Asahel in the family grave. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that, although we call it a treaty here for a time, that doesn't mean that the battle is over. It just means there's a treaty. It's a peace agreement for now. A ceasefire they agree to. We won't fight you guys. If you won't fight our guys, we'll go our way. You'll go your separate way. Maybe some of our leaders can hash this out and talk to each other and figure it out. Otherwise, we'll have to come back and do battle later. Okay? So that's where we pick it up here in chapter 3, verse 1. So please follow along in your Bibles there, chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron. And so we have all of these sons. So we're seeing David is taking more wives, living further, or falling further and further into the sin of adultery and polygamy. Skip to verse 6. And it came to pass, while there was a war between the house of Saul and the house of David, and that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone in unto my father's concubine? Then was Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, Am I a dog's head, which against Judah do show kindness this day, unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord hath sworn to David, even so I do to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. So, we get an argument here between Abner and Ishbosheth. Remember, Abner had made Ishbosheth, the still living son of Saul, into the king. So Ishbosheth was probably back somewhere. Okay? And it was there that he had made himself a ruler. Okay? And he's here at Mahanaim, right? Is that where we read? But, well, that's where I think they go. But anyways, what does Abner do? Well, Abner wants to assert his power too. He wants to tell the people, look at me. Look at who I am. I'm powerful and strong too. So what does he do? he takes one of the concubines, in other words, the many wives of Saul, or one of the many girlfriends of Saul that he was having children with, and he takes her to be his wife. Now, you might, in today's day and age, that might not seem like such a big thing, but back in the Bible times, in the medieval ages, if you married the dead king's wife, what were you saying about yourself? You were saying, I am the new king. I am the man with power. I am the new ruler. Okay? Because I have married this queen. Now, in this sense, she's not the queen because it's just one of the many concubines that he has. But either way, that's what Abner is trying to show. By marrying this woman, this Rizpah, he's saying that. And Ishbosheth gets after him. Ishbosheth kind of says, who do you think you are? What are you doing? You can't marry one of my father's concubines. And Abner kind of blows Ishbosheth off and says, well, who are you? Right? I'm the one who made you strong for the house of Saul. I made you king. You can't tell me what to do. He too, again, if we look into his heart, he only cares about himself and making himself strong. Right? He wanted to be powerful too. Wicked, ungodly reasons for doing anything. Okay? So now that he considered himself that, we see that he married this Rizpah. Okay? So, in the end, Ishbosheth really can't say anything because he's afraid. He knows that Abner has all the power. The only reason Ishbosheth is a ruler is because Abner put him there. Okay? So, what happens between the two of them? Are they going to agree? Are they going to stay together? Is Ishbosheth going to step down as king? Well, if we pick it up at verse 12, we see what happens. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, whose is the land? Saying also, make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, deliver me my wife Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent, and took her from her husband, even from Phaeltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went along with her, weeping behind her to bury him. Then said Abner to him, go, return. And he returned. So, Abner is pretty wise and cunning here. Again, it's his heart. He cares only about himself. So what does he do? He pretends I'll be on David's side. Fine. If I'm going to have an argument with Ishbosheth, here you go, Ishbosheth. I'll take the kingdom from your hand. So he marches over to talk to David, or sends a messenger. What does he march over? He sends a messenger to David, and he says this, David, all of the men of Israel, the other 10 tribes, you have Judah. I've got Benjamin on my side and the other tribes. If you would listen to me and have a talk, an agreement with me, I can get all of the other tribes to come and support you as king. I can do it. I can deliver them unto you because I'm that powerful, David. Okay? Now, obviously what he probably hopes is to be the right-hand man of David. As a result of doing this, David, I expect something in return. I don't think that he's just doing this out of the kindness of his heart. He is hoping for something in return. And so that's what Abner says. And he says, I'll go talk to them. But he says one thing. Or David says, well, I'll agree to it, but I want Michal, my first wife that Saul had given me for killing and taking and rewarding with 100 foreskins of the Philistines. I want Michal, my wife, back. Well, the problem is she's married to another man. So she's living in sin because she's married another man. She's committing the sin of adultery. And David is committing the sin of adultery because he is living with multitudes of women. And realistically, in the eyes of God, David is only married to Michal, and Michal is only married to Saul. Or David. This doesn't fix the problem by getting them back together. Oh, now all those sins go away. No, they're still living in sin. They have to confess that sin. They need to put away all their other wives or husbands. They can't do that. And not only that, they're married to other people. They couldn't even rectify that in a sense. So, anyways, Abner agrees to it. Okay? And Ishbosheth is able to intervene here, and they get Michal. They drag her out from wherever she is. She's taken towards David, and her her current husband, this Phaeltiel, he's mourning. He's following along behind her, kind of like a whimpering dog. Or a small child walking after their parent, begging, please, can I have it back? Please, can I have it? No, Abner says, get out of here. Turn around and go home. And so finally he turns around and goes home. He's going to have to get on with his life. Okay? Abner and Ishbosheth probably shouldn't have had anything to do with this anyways, because they're meddling here in these people who are living in the sin of adultery. Alright, so what finally happens when Abner comes before David? That's what we finish up here, verse 17. Okay? And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, Ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now do it. For the Lord has spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him, and David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. So Abner basically comes to him personally, says, now I can deliver all of these other tribes to you. You've been made king by Judah. All these other tribes will make you king if you work with me. And so what does Abner do? He goes out and he speaks to the tribe of Benjamin specifically. They're going to need a special talking to because they just had the king Saul, and they're hoping Ishbosheth could rule. They want to have the king from their tribe. They're filled with pride. That's not the case. David is going to be the new king. He's been anointed by the Lord. So he's going to come from the tribe of Judah. Sorry, Benjamin, okay, but you should still come along. He also goes and talks to the men in the northern Israel to get them to join David's army. Okay? And he persuaded many other of the tribes to come in. Okay? And finally he takes these men and he goes to David. You can see that David entertained them with a feast of friendship. And we can say something about Abner. We can say that he's probably a man who has what we call leadership qualities and skills. In other words, he can get people to do things. And he can convince them to be on your side or work hard. Those are good skills to have. I could probably pick out a dozen people that in this world that you would recognize as men who are good leaders. Are they godly? By no means. But God has given to them the skills of great leadership. And we could say that here about Abner. He's a man with good leadership. He's enthusiastic about his work. His heart is for his work. He loves his work, and he really wants to do well at it. But at the same time, is he doing it for himself, or is he doing it for the honor and glory of God? Okay? So, he goes away to go get things ready, to try to get all of Israel on David's side. So, again, we don't know Abner's heart. Was he really doing this for God's sake, or was he doing this for his own sake? And that's always a challenge for you and me when we have decisions, when we're vehement for it, when we're enthusiastic for something. Why are we doing this? Are we doing this on the behalf of the Lord, or are we doing this out of our own heart's desire? What is it that we're doing? And that's the challenge for us to always remember in everything as we go through kind of these lessons.